Morning, everyone. It is Monday morning, June 8th. We are in our last week of school. I can't believe it. The year has just flown by. It has been an absolutely crazy year for reasons I don't need to go into. But this is, we are studying history while making history. That is what's been going on around here in the last 3 months. And it's kind of crazy because I don't think you'll ever forget what's happened over these last 3 months for as long as you live, and I know I won't for as long as I live. So we are living in unprecedented times, and I'm about a little over 20 years older than you guys, and in a little over 20 years, kids your age, and we're going to be sitting here studying this COVID-19 pandemic and what happened to the economy and the political scene and all the outcomes and what they knew and the different things that are going to take place after this to make sure that it doesn't happen again, the different agencies, the different legislations. It's going to be crazy. And, I don't know if it's cool or ironic or sad or all of those things that, we are studying our country's history while our country is going through a time that is definitely going to be remembered and studied in history. So I hope you guys all had a good weekend. We are going to do George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton today. We'll do George W. Bush, son of George H.W. Bush, tomorrow. We'll do some Obama on Wednesday. Your papers, your capstone writing assignments are due on Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. That's the last grade of the quarter and of the year. So just if you have any questions, let me know. If you want me to read what you have, send it over, and we'll get that moving. What else do we have? So Thursday, what we'll do is we'll set up some Zoom meetings. I'll send you the links on Google Classroom, and we will meet class by class to talk and say hello and say goodbye and talk about our summers and what we're doing and what our plans are, things like that, just to kind of close things out. And then Friday, we will have our customary no class. So we finished Reagan. We are election of 1988. George H.W. Bush is going to run against a Democrat named David Dukakis. So I'm 6 years old at this point, and there is some memory in my head of that name, Dukakis. So I do remember something about this election. I would imagine the fact that I can remember that name. So George H.W. is a Republican. David is the Democrat. Now, H.W. has a long political career before this. I believe the Bush family money comes from oil. There are Texas roots there. There are also Maine roots there. I think Bush and his son were both educated up in New England in like fancy private schools, but I think the family originally came from Texas. I think that's where the money comes from. What did he do? I believe he served during World War II. He was a U.S. representative from Texas. He was ambassador to the United Nations. He was a director of the CIA. He was then Reagan's vice president for 2 terms from from 80 to 88. And then he is going to run in 1988 and he is going to win. Now, while he's in office, his foreign policy record, I would say, is more popular than his domestic record. You're going to see the fall of the Berlin Wall. You're going to see the reunification of Germany. We're going to see the fall of the Soviet Union, and 15 new states are going to be carved out of that, with Russia being the biggest. So Cold War is over. The idea that the Soviet Union and the United States were these two major superpowers on a collision course with each other is no longer the case. Russia is weakened. And then Russia, becomes the Russia that you know of today, basically, which isn't the most wonderful thing in the world, but I guess it's better than them controlling, 20 different states throughout Eastern and Southern Europe, that then got to form their own governments in Hungary and Poland, and Bush is going to visit some of those countries. So he's got to be careful not to fan the flames. Gorbachev is the leader of the Soviet Union at this time. He's got political pressure on him. Bush has political pressure on him. So there are those that are trusting of the Russians and those that are not trusting of the Russians. But he largely remains trusting of the Russians and just kind of slow plays things and sees it through. And all the things that the United States would have wanted to happen happened. So all on their own without a bullet fired. So it really did work out well for them there towards the end, or for us, I should say. Gulf War. So this is the first war that I can actually remember. What am I, about 9 years old, 8, 9 years old when this is happening? I remember my grandfather talking about Saddam Hussein at the dining room table for family dinner at some point, and how crazy he was. So Saddam Hussein is the dictator of Iraq. He is going to invade Kuwait, which I believe is south of Iraq. They are both high producing oil countries. Bush, Europe, the Americans, all of us start to fear that they are going to attack Saudi Arabia or Israel. And Saudi Arabia has another 25% of the world's oil. So between those three countries, if Saddam was to cause problems with Saudi Arabia, you could be talking about 50% of the world's oil supply that could be affected, which could throw the world's economy into disarray, because if there's any sort of threat to the supply, prices are going to spike, and business and consumer life is going to drastically slow down as a result of the extra money it's going to cost to buy oil. What else? So he's going to go to the UN and ask them to put together a force. He's also going to go to Congress for authorization to kind of use American forces to work with the UN forces and kind of lead the day there. He's going to convince Britain and France and Canada to join along. And they're going to go in with a bombing campaign, knock out the electrical grid, and it's a couple months long, this entire military invasion. And I think Iraq does launch some missiles at Saudi Arabia and Israel, but it doesn't really do any damage. So this is another win for him and a win for the United States. It's quick. It's coalition force, lots of different allies, so it's not unilateral action, and it's, small death count, and, they're back and done. Now, the economy, which had been pretty good in the late 80s, hits a little recession in the 90s. They start to get worried about the budget. So today, right now, you're not hearing much against the budget. It kind of comes and goes. It's a little bit more of a constant thing back then. America had never really run deficits until they got in trouble during the Great Depression and World War II. So these men all grew up at a time where debt was bad for the nation. It hurt your credit rating. It hurt your standing in the world. People wouldn't want to lend you money if you didn't have your house in order. That sort of old way of thinking. Now, Reagan, I don't know, I think doubled it or tripled it in the 8 years that he was in, mostly because of military spending and Social Security and entitlement. So Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the military probably make up, I don't know, 70 or 80% of the entire federal budget. That's what they spend their money on. So you have people that want to lessen social entitlements, people that want to lessen military spending, people that want to lessen both. Other people say that the debt is no big deal, but it starts to become an issue back and forth. It's a political issue. Democrats more along the lines of, it's not a big deal, we're spending to help people, and Republicans more along the lines of, stop spending, spending, spending. It's going to become a problem at some point in the future. Now, what's weird is that even though those two political viewpoints exist, no one has done anything to stop it. So Bush is actually going to try to rein in the budget. He backs a Democratic congressional plan, which makes him unpopular with Newt Gingrich and the Republicans. And the Republicans are going to kind of go after him. And he ran on a campaign promise where he actually said on TV, read my lips, no new taxes. Well, guess what? The secondary plan that he winds up agreeing to actually raised taxes on certain high net worth people. That's going to plummet his approval rating. And then in the election of 1992, which he would have had probably a leg up and every ability to win, he kind of gets sideswiped by a third-party candidate known as Ross Perot. And Ross Perot, probably in American history, or let's say in recent American history, is the only third-party candidate to really matter. And he got over 19% of the popular vote in 1992, which swung the election away from George H.W. Bush and giving it to Bill Clinton. So without Ross Perot, you probably don't have Bill Clinton as a two-term president. And Ross Perot was a billionaire, also from Texas, I believe. I don't know if his money was in oil. I forget exactly where his money came from. Um, but he was appealing to a lot of Republican moderate voters. So he didn't take many votes away from Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton remained with his normal amount of votes, but the votes taken away or given to Ross Perot were largely thought to have taken away or been taken away from George H.W. Bush. So that's going to swing the election in Bill Clinton's favor. This is the 1988 when Bush beat Dukakis. That's the Berlin Wall. That's George H.W. Now, so Bill Clinton, I believe he grew up pretty poor. I forget what state. I don't know if he's from Arkansas, but I'm pretty sure he grew up a single mother. I think his father left. Um, Grew up very poor and went to Georgetown Law, became a Rhodes Scholar. So I'm going to assume that he's, pretty fantastically intelligent. Um, so he is a two-term president. He was the Arkansas governor before winning the presidency. Uh, the healthcare debate that you hear about today, whether it be Obamacare or universal healthcare or expansion of Medicare and Medicaid, whatever they are calling it right now, that's going to enter the political arena in bigger attention, I guess you could say, during this period. And it's actually Hillary Clinton's pet project. So and you all know Hillary Clinton from the election of 2016. Um, she is a lawyer like Bill. I think she went to, I don't know, Yale and then Columbia Law, or Yale and then Harvard Law. He went to Georgetown, and then I forget where he went to law school. But they're very, very learned people. They were successful litigators in Arkansas as he rose up in politics. And first ladies up until this point, they largely were figureheads in the sense that they didn't ever have that much power. I mean, Eleanor Roosevelt had a good amount of power and she knew how to use it unstated. Hillary Clinton, when they won and they moved into the White House, she requested an office in the West Wing. And the West Wing is where the business of the president is conducted. So that's the work part of the White House. And first ladies did not have offices in the West Wing. Like they were not on official business, let's say, on a daily basis. She felt that she was. She felt like she could add something to his campaign, or his administration, I should say. Like she looked at First Lady as a role in the administration. That pissed a lot of people off, traditional conservative type people. And I think the hatred of Hillary Clinton started then. Short hair, business suit, requests the office in the West Wing, and then tries to push universal health care through our legislature. That's quite a start to a political career. He helps to reform the welfare program. Social Security problems are realized. So I guess at some point somebody opened their eyes and looked at the math and said, oh, if we keep spending out of Social Security like this, and compared to the amount of money that we're bringing in to Social Security, we're going to run out of money by a certain time. So that's still going on today. I think we're pretty close. I've heard anywhere between 2025 and 2035, the money can run out. First of all, I don't know why we have a 10-year window. Money, they should be able to figure out, when the money's going to run out. I guess the income does fluctuate based upon income, or income tax, I should say. But yeah, we are running out of money in Social Security. Remember, that's the old age pension. You can start collecting it at 62. You can wait until 70 to collect it, but I think then at that point you have to. And it's basically, money because you can't work. You're still alive. You still have quality of life. You still have bills to pay. Of course, you should have saved on your own, but this is a little bit of extra help. Now, Bill Clinton is, I don't know, is he best known? I guess he could be best known. Um, he's best known for his scandal and impeachment. So Bill Clinton is somewhat of a ladies' man, and he is going to have a sexual encounter with at least one of his aides in the Oval Office. And it comes out, and I don't remember all the details, but I mean, I don't know, 12 at this point. So I remember a lot of this stuff, and I remember people being glued to the television about it. But he is going to deny it, and then they are going to get DNA evidence on her dress that he was in fact there. So he is going to be caught perjuring himself under oath. So now you have a president who not only lied, but lied in sworn testimony that he did not have any sexual encounter with this woman, and now it is proven with DNA evidence that in fact he did. And there's another woman named Paula Jones who came out and said something too, but I don't know all the details on that, so I'm not going to bring that in here. Monica Lewinsky is the famous one from the Oval Office, and that's the one that he really gets caught on, I believe. Now, it is not illegal to carry on an affair. It is illegal to lie under oath. Now, you get into this, executive privilege. What is the president allowed to do? What are they not allowed to do? How far can they stretch the law? What is an impeachable offense? What is not an impeachable offense? So Newt Gingrich and the House Republicans, who are the majority party in the in the House of Representatives, they are going to write articles of impeachment for Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton is going to involve himself in various tactics to, thwart the special counsel who's investigating him. It's sort of crazy because the Trump scandal and impeachment largely, I think it reminded people of the Clinton impeachment, where one house drew up the articles of impeachment because they had the House. They knew they could. And then the Senate killed it. And that's exactly what happened with Trump. The Democrats in the House had the majority, so they wrote the articles of impeachment. Then it went to the impeachment proceeding, where the Senate, controlled by the Republicans, voted it down. And you have to assume that all these politicians are kind of gauging the public to see how passionate is the public that the president actually did something wrong and actually should be removed. That's a major event, removing a president. It's actually never technically happened through the impeachment and removal process. Nixon was on his way to being impeached and removed and resigned. So and the Andrew Johnson impeachment in 1866 or 67, that failed by one vote. So Clinton is going to be impeached by Republicans in the House and will be acquitted by Democratic-controlled Senate. So his approval rating actually goes up after he survives impeachment, and it kind of sums up that the majority, at least, of Americans didn't really think that what he did was that bad. I'm going to assume that in the court of public opinion, he won the day. We're going to have the dot-com economic boom. So there is a major economic spike in the late 90s due to the advent of the internet. And as the internet was created, and AOL and Netscape and Microsoft and all of these different primitive dial-up companies were starting to come on, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there, tremendous amount of venture capital money. So wealthy people were wildly speculating that the next tech company that was going to pop was Company X. So there was a lot of placing bets on various tech companies as they were emerging, and who was going to be able to buy the first Google before it came out, because Google's not right away. Google's a little bit later, and we know now how and so was Amazon. They're not in the earliest. Actually, I think they are. I think Amazon as a bookstore started to come on around 97, 98. So somewhere there, and we know what Google and Amazon are today to the market. He finally balances the budget. So George H.W. Bush should get some credit for this as well, because he starts to put Congress on the pathway to budget reconciliation. But with this dot-com economic boom, there's going to be a tremendous amount of increase in tax revenue, making it easier on our federal government to not only strike a budget, but actually have some budget surpluses. And I think since the Vietnam War, we have not run a budget surplus except for maybe 2 or 3 years in the late 1990s. Every other year since the Vietnam War in the 1960s has been a negative in terms of revenue for this country. And that's why we, I think, are sitting somewhere around 25 trillion in debt as we speak. NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. Again, a nod needs to go to George H.W. Bush. He largely negotiated this deal. He winds up losing re-election, and then Clinton is able to get ratification for it through Congress. So this is a free trade agreement between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It means more open borders for trade, and less taxes on things that are made in other countries. So if we sell pigs to Mexico, we drop the taxes on those in exchange for things that we buy from Mexico. They drop the taxes on that. So the idea is lower taxes, more trade, ease of transmission of goods. Now, the negatives here are, this is a mini globalization. I mean, instead of moving around the world, you're moving around the North American continent. And what happens is if Mexico and Canada are willing to accept American companies to produce there, if American companies can find cheaper labor in Mexico, then would they then go and build things down there? I know a lot of air conditioning units and like central air units. There's a lot of cars that are made in factories in Mexico. I'm going to assume that NAFTA kind of opened the door to them being able to go down there and getting cheaper labor with the benefits of producing in America because of this kind of tax and tariff agreement. Okay. So I got a picture for you. Let's end there for today. It's good to quote unquote see all of you. I'm looking forward to our last week. It's a little sad. I am happy that the summer is starting. But I really hope that all of you guys will come on Thursday and show your face and say hello before we go for the summer. And that's it, guys. I hope you're all doing well. Thanks.